Once upon a time, in a serene and beautiful valley, there was a shepherd who had a flock of 100 sheep. These sheep were not just numbers to him, each was known by name and loved individually. Among them, there was a young, curious lamb named Elia, who loved to explore the hills and meadows that stretched beyond their pasture. One day, while grazing, Elia found herself enchanted by a butterfly that danced in the warm breeze. Mesmerized, she followed the fluttering creature over hills and beyond streams, not realizing how far she was wandering from her flock. As evening approached, the sky blushed with the colors of the setting sun, and the shepherd began to count his flock as he always did. He noticed that Elia was missing. Concern gripped his heart, for he knew the dangers of the wild land at night, with its lurking predators and steep ravines. Determined to find his lost lamb, the shepherd left the 99 sheep in a safe pen and ventured into the growing darkness with only his staff and a lantern. He called out for Elia, his voice echoing through the silent valleys, "Elia, Elia, where are you?" The valleys were dark, and the night was cold, but he did not give up. Deep in the wilderness, Elia, now tired and afraid, heard the comforting voice of her shepherd. She bleated in reply, hearing her name called once again. Her heart leapt with hope, guiding her back as she made her way through the underbrush and over rocky paths. The shepherd rejoiced greatly upon finding Elia, gently singing a lullaby to calm her fears. He placed her on his shoulders, relieved and joyful, and carried her back to the flock. The other sheep were already settled for the night, and as the shepherd returned with Elia, they bleated softly, welcoming her home. The shepherd's heart was filled with happiness, for what was lost had been found, and his flock was whole once more. This story echoes the profound unconditional love God has for all of his children. Just like the shepherd who relentlessly searches for his lost lamb, God seeks us out, bringing us back to safety and grace, reminding us that we are cherished beyond measure. Rejoice with me, I have found my lost sheep. This story reminds us of God's unwavering pursuit and love. Once in a quaint little village nestled between rolling hills and lush forests, there lived two brothers, Isaac and Joshua. They were known throughout the village for their close bond, always seen together playing, working, or exploring the depths of the nearby woods. However, as often happens in life, a small misunderstanding grew into a major quarrel. It began with an unkind word spoken in haste, which festered into anger and resentment. Each brother felt wronged, refusing to forgive or even speak to the other. Their closeness, once a strong foothold, seemed shattered forever. Days turned into weeks, and the silence between them was louder than any argument ever was. Their family, distressed by the chasm that had formed, sought advice from the village elder, a wise and compassionate woman revered for her insight and fairness. The elder invited Isaac and Joshua to her humble home. "Dear brothers, I see the burden you carry," she began, her voice gentle yet firm. "You must travel beyond the mountain to the ancient well of wisdom. There, you will find what you truly need." Confused but desiring reconciliation, the brothers set out on the journey together, walking in tense silence. The path was long and arduous, fraught with steep inclines and rocky roads. Yet, the further they traveled, the more they found themselves cooperating, offering a steady hand to navigate the difficult terrain. By the time they reached the well, they had spoken a few words, reawakening the connection they had nearly lost. At the well, they found a simple wooden plaque that read, "The true test of love is the ability to forgive." The brothers gazed at each other, and in that moment, they understood the elder's wisdom. Swallowing their pride, each brother apologized for his part in their dispute. Their journey home felt lighter, filled with laughter and shared stories once more. Upon their return to the village, they sought out the elder. "We have found forgiveness at the well, and with it, our bond has been mended," Isaac told her, tears of gratitude in his eyes. The wise elder smiled warmly. You see, forgiveness is not just a gift to those you forgive, but a gift to yourself as well. Your journey, both outward and within, has taught you the most precious lesson of all. And from that day forward, Isaac and Joshua understood that no quarrel was worth the loss of brotherhood and the peace that forgiveness brings. The story teaches us that forgiveness is a powerful act of love that heals both the giver and the receiver, echoing the biblical lesson, bear with each other and forgive one another. If any of you has a grievance against someone, forgive as the Lord forgave you. In a small coastal village, nestled between lush green hills and the azure sea, the locals lived simple lives, their days dictated by the rhythms of the ocean. Among them was a young fisherman named David, who was known for his unyielding faith. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and villagers retreated to their homes, a fierce storm began to brew over the ocean. David, out at sea with his small fishing boat, suddenly found himself engulfed in towering waves and roaring winds. The storm seemed to manifest with unrelenting power, threatening to capsize his fragile vessel at any moment. As lightning tore through the sky and thunder rumbled with ominous intent, David clung to the boat's helm. With each passing moment, his hope began to wane. Yet, amidst the chaos, he cried out to God for protection, remembering the words of Psalm 91:11. For he will command his angels concerning you to guard you in all your ways. Suddenly, above the howling wind and crashing waves, David thought he heard a gentle whisper, like the rustling of a soft breeze, carrying with it a sense of peace. Fear not, it seemed to say, and in that instant, David felt a warmth that belied the fierce cold of the storm. In his heart, David believed that he was not alone, that angels, unseen but present, were watching over him, guiding his hands and calming his fears. Focused and assured, he began navigating the raging sea with newfound strength and purpose. Back on shore, the villagers gathered anxiously, peering into the dark night for any sign of David's return. In their prayers, they interceded on his behalf, believing in the divine protection that faith could manifest. Hours passed, and miraculously, as dawn's first light crested the horizon, David's boat emerged from the dissipating storm, battered but intact. He reached the safety of the harbor to the joyful cheers of his community, who praised God for his safe return. David recounted the experience, speaking with awe about the peaceful presence that had guided him through. It was as if angels were steering me, he said, sent by God to ensure my safe passage. The storm, a test of faith, reminded David and his village of the divine guardianship that accompanies those who trust in the Lord. Just as God sends his angels to protect us, faith empowers us to weather the storms of life, no matter how fierce they may be. As the villagers gathered for prayer and thanksgiving, they understood that in their moments of greatest fear, they need only call upon their faith and trust in God's providence. Do not fear, for I am with you. A promise from God that resonated in their hearts, assuring them that they were never alone. On a stormy night long ago, in a small fishing village by the coast, there lived a humble fisherman named Jonathan. He was known for his unwavering faith in God. Whether the sun shined brightly or the clouds loomed dark and threatening, Jonathan greeted each day with gratitude and trust in the Almighty. One evening, as Jonathan prepared his boat for the nightly catch, a harsh wind began to whip through the village, sending shivers down the spine of even the most seasoned sailors. His fellow fishermen advised him to stay ashore, echoing warnings about the storm gathering strength offshore. Yet, Jonathan felt a quiet, steadfast assurance in his heart, a calling from God to be not afraid. Determined and hopeful, Jonathan set sail into the turbulent waters, whispering prayers into the howling wind. The waves rose angrily against his vessel, and the sky unleashed torrents of rain, but Jonathan stood firm, clutching the wheel of his small boat with faith as his anchor. As the storm raged, Jonathan remembered the teachings of Jesus calming the storm in the scriptures. He envisioned Jesus standing in his boat, commanding the winds and waves with divine authority. "Peace, be still," Jonathan cried out amidst the chaos, echoing the words of Jesus. Miraculously, in that moment of pure faith, the storm began to abate, and the sea eased its fury. Jonathan returned to the village with a remarkable catch that night, a testament to his faith in God. The villagers marveled at how Jonathan had ventured into the storm and emerged unscathed, his faith shining like a beacon through the darkness. Jonathan's story spread through the village, inspiring others to trust in God's plan and to have courage in the face of fear. His tale became a cherished part of the village's lore, a reminder that faith in God can calm the fiercest storms. The Christian teaching from this story is, faith overcomes fear, for with God, nothing is impossible. In a small town nestled between rolling hills and serene rivers, a young boy named David faced challenges that loomed as large as Goliath. Despite being only 13, David was wise beyond his years, yet he battled fears that seemed insurmountable to him. David was often bullied at school by a group of older students led by a particularly intimidating boy named Gregor, who was much larger and stronger than David. Every day, Gregor would taunt David, making school a daunting place to be. Despite his fear, David was deeply rooted in his faith. His grandmother had instilled in him the power of prayer and the comfort of the scriptures. Each night, David would read his favorite Bible stories, taking solace in the tales of old, particularly admiring the story of his namesake, David who faced Goliath. One night, as the moonlight filtered gently through his window, David knelt by his bed and prayed earnestly, "Dear God, please grant me the courage to face my giants, just as you gave David the courage to face Goliath." The following day, at school, the annual talent show was announced. David saw this as an opportunity that God had placed before him. Though he was terrified of performing in front of the entire school, he decided to enter the talent show with hopes to sing a song that he wrote about courage and faith. As the day of the performance approached, David practiced tirelessly, each chord resonating like a heartbeat, each lyric a step towards overcoming his fears. However, doubt would creep in, often bringing images of Gregor's sneering face. On the day of the talent show, David stood backstage with clammy hands and a racing heart. He thought about backing out, but a small, still voice in his heart whispered, "I am with you." Gathering his courage, David stepped onto the stage. He began to sing, his voice shaking initially but gaining strength with each note. His song told of a young shepherd boy who faced a giant with nothing but a sling, stones, and faith. It was a story everyone knew, yet David sang it with newfound passion and truth. When he finished, the auditorium erupted in applause. With tears in his eyes, David saw not only his friends cheering but also Gregor, clapping slowly, a new respect in his eyes. From that day forward, the bullying ceased. Gregor approached David and, in an unexpected turn of events, apologized. They never became the best of friends, but the animosity melted away. David's faith had inspired not only himself but also those around him. The story of David teaches us that with faith, we can confront and overcome our fears, no matter how daunting they may appear. As it is said, "Do not be afraid, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God." In a quaint village nestled among lush green hills, there was a skilled carpenter named Joseph, renowned for his craft and his integrity. He was a patient, loving man who was blessed with a kind-hearted son named Samuel. Joseph was not just a craftsman in his workshop, he was a craftsman in life, shaping not just wood but the character of his son with the tools of love, patience, and service. Every day, little Samuel would watch his father work with wonder. Joseph's hands moved with precision and care as he turned raw wood into beautiful furniture. Samuel admired his father's patience and the joy he found in his work. He often asked, "Father, why do you take such care in everything you do?" Joseph would smile gently and reply, "My son, everything we do as if unto the Lord. When we work with love and care, we honor Him in our actions and our life." Inspired by his father's words, Samuel began helping around the workshop. At first, he made small mistakes, his youthful eagerness outpacing his skill. But Joseph never scolded. Instead, he taught Samuel with patience, showing him that mistakes were not failures but lessons on the road to mastery. He often said, "Remember, Samuel, with patience and practice, all things can be perfected." One day, a poor widow from their village came to Joseph, needing a new cradle for her baby. She had little to offer in exchange, but Joseph greeted her with a tender smile. "Fear not," he said, "for love and service are treasures beyond price." Samuel watched as his father crafted a beautiful cradle, entirely free of charge, and he realized the depth of his father's kindness. When the cradle was completed, the widow was profoundly grateful, her eyes shimmering with tears of joy. She blessed Joseph and Samuel, thanking God for their generosity and love. Samuel felt a warmth in his heart as he understood the true meaning of service, that giving without expecting anything in return was a blessing both to the giver and the receiver. In this way, through the simple acts of daily life, from every piece of wood carefully carved to every kindness shown to a neighbor, Samuel learned the importance of love, patience, and selfless service from his father. As he grew, he carried these lessons into his own life, passing them down to his children, ensuring that the legacy of goodness was carried on. Thus, in every act of kindness and every moment of patience and love, we find the essence of living the teachings of Christ, who said, "Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven." In a small village nestled between lush green hills, a young child named Samuel lived with his family. Samuel was known for his joy and his unwavering faith. One bright spring morning, while playing near a grove, Samuel found some seeds scattered on the ground. To him, they looked like the start of something marvelous. With a heart full of hope, Samuel gathered the seeds and returned home excitedly. "Mother, look what I found," he exclaimed, showing her the tiny seeds cupped in his small hands. His mother smiled gently. "Do you wish to plant them in the garden, Samuel?" "Yes, I want to see what they might become," he replied eagerly, his eyes alight with wonder. His mother handed him a trowel and together, they went to the garden. Samuel dug small holes in the soil, placing each seed carefully and covering them with earth. Understanding the power of prayer from his Sunday school lessons, Samuel clasped his hands reverently and whispered a short prayer over each spot, asking God to watch over his seeds so that they might grow. Days turned into weeks, and Samuel diligently tended to the garden, watering and keeping watch over the patch he had planted. The villagers watched with curiosity, sometimes giving knowing glances to each other about the improbability of those barren seeds sprouting. But Samuel's heart was ever hopeful and his faith unwavering. With God, all things are possible, he often reminded himself, echoing the words he had heard at church. One morning, as the sun painted the sky in hues of gold and pink, Samuel rushed out to the garden, his eyes widened in awe. A miracle had unfolded. From the ground sprouted vibrant plants in full bloom, flowers of every shade imaginable, their petals swaying gently in the morning breeze. Samuel's garden had become a little paradise. The village marveled at the sight, each villager touched by the child's simple faith and the miracle that had unfolded before them. "It's truly a wonder," remarked an old woman, "a testament to what faith can grow and prayer can cultivate." Samuel's garden became a source of inspiration and hope, reminding everyone that even the smallest act of faith can yield the most extraordinary results. The lesson from Samuel's story is profound. Faith as small as a mustard seed can move mountains, and in nurturing our belief and hope, we may witness miracles that touch lives around us. In a small village nestled between sun-baked hills, there lived a group of children whose hearts were full of hope and faith. The land they called home had been dry and unforgiving for many years, causing despair among the villagers who depended on it for their sustenance. One day, inspired by stories of faith and perseverance, the children decided to take action. They gathered in the barren fields, their small hands clutching seeds, and they knelt together in prayer. With eyes closed and heads bowed, they asked God for rain and strength to transform their village's land. Every morning, the children returned to the fields, watering the seeds with what little water they could spare. Despite the dry spells that continued, they did not give up hope. Instead, they encouraged one another with tales of how faith can move mountains and the importance of patience. Days turned to weeks, and the sprouts of new life began to peek through the once cracked soil. The villagers watched in awe as lush green plants started spreading across the fields. The children's tenacity had not only sparked life from the earth but had renewed a sense of community hope and belief in miracles. As the garden flourished, it became a symbol of what prayer and perseverance could achieve. The once dry land now produced enough fruits and vegetables to sustain the village, transforming despair into abundance. The miracle garden was not just a testament to the children's labor but a manifestation of their faith and the power of collective prayer. This lush expanse reminded everyone that even in the most difficult times, hope and faith can inspire change and growth. The story of the miracle garden teaches us that faith and perseverance, even from the youngest souls, can work wonders and transform the most hopeless situations into manifestations of God's love and blessing. In a quaint village nestled between rolling hills and serene meadows, lived two brothers, Michael and Joseph. They were known for their inseparable bond and shared laughter that resonated across the village. However, as it often happens between siblings, a dispute over a seemingly trivial matter ignited a fiery argument between them. Words were exchanged, harsh and inflaming, severing their connection and planting seeds of bitterness. Michael and Joseph stopped speaking altogether, their once joyful home now filled with palpable silence. The divide was felt by the entire village, as the harmony that these brothers brought to their community was missed dearly. Each brother harbored resentment, convinced of his own righteousness, thereby leaving no room for reconciliation. One day, their sage-like grandfather, who was revered for his wisdom and gentle spirit, called them to his cottage. He welcomed them with a serene smile and said, "My dear grandsons, let me tell you a story." With their hearts still heavy with anger, the brothers reluctantly agreed to listen. Long ago, the grandfather began, there were two feuding friends. They decided to part ways, but before doing so, one of them wrote all the wrongs the other had done to him on a piece of paper. The other friend pondered over those words and wrote all the goodness and shared memories instead. His friend questioned the second friend's actions, to which he replied, "Memories of goodness chart the course for a boundless future, while holding on to wrongs anchors us in past hurts." The room was silent, the words sinking into the brothers' hearts as they pondered their own grievances. "What do you cherish more, dear grandsons?" asked their grandfather with compassionate eyes. "Is it the bond you've shared or the bitterness you carry?" Touched by the simplicity yet profoundness of the story, Michael and Joseph's eyes met for the first time in weeks. The deep-seated love they felt for one another began to unravel the knots of anger and resentment. Tears welled up in their eyes as they embraced each other, understanding the greater calling for forgiveness that transcended any conflicts. In the weeks that followed, their laughter once again melded with the birds' song and the gentle rustling of leaves in the village. The brothers learned that forgiveness, though often challenging, allows love to prevail above all disputes. The village celebrated their reunion, and the story of their forgiveness became a cherished lesson for all. Christian teaching: Forgiveness restores broken bonds and fosters love that reflects the grace and mercy God shows us. Be kind to one another, tender-hearted, forgiving one another, as God in Christ forgave you. In a bustling city where towering buildings cast long shadows over crowded streets, lived a young man named Jonathan. He had moved to the city from a small village, carrying with him a heart full of dreams and a spirit aflame with faith. Unlike others who sought wealth and success, Jonathan's mission was to spread a message of hope and love, guided by his unwavering devotion to God. Every morning, Jonathan would walk through the city's bustling marketplaces and alleys, carrying a small, worn leather-bound Bible. His youthful face bore a constant, gentle smile that seemed to lighten the burdens of those who crossed his path. He would stop to listen to anyone who seemed troubled, offering words of comfort and a prayer. Jonathan believed in the power of small acts of kindness. He saw them as little lights of the divine, capable of transforming even the darkest corners of the city. Whenever he could, Jonathan helped those in need. He would offer his lunch to the homeless, assist elderly individuals in crossing busy streets, and share warm words of encouragement to the weary. One day, as he strolled through the city square, Jonathan noticed a young woman sitting alone on a bench, tears streaming down her face. Her name was Sarah, and she had recently lost her job, unsure of how she would pay her rent or buy groceries. Feeling drawn to her, Jonathan approached and sat beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked softly, his eyes full of compassion. Sarah shook her head. She felt overwhelmed, explaining her situation with a crack in her voice. Jonathan listened patiently, allowing her to pour out her fears and frustrations. When she finished, he gently took her hand, bowed his head, and began to pray. "Lord, give Sarah strength in this time of trial. Be her refuge and provide for her needs," he prayed as pedestrians hurried by, hardly noticing the small act of grace taking place before them. In the weeks that followed, Sarah's outlook began to change. Inspired by Jonathan's kindness and faith, she found courage to apply for new jobs, and soon, she was offered a position that suited her skills. But more than the job, it was the encounter with Jonathan that rekindled her faith in people and in God. Word of Jonathan's kindness spread throughout the neighborhood. He became known as a light in the city. His simple acts of goodness became a testament to the community, reminding everyone that even in a city as big and daunting as theirs, compassion and prayer were powerful forces of change. Jonathan's story teaches us that acts of kindness, no matter how small, can ripple through the lives of many, bringing light and hope where it is most needed. Let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. In a small, dimly lit chapel at the edge of a bustling village, a single candle flickered gently atop a modest wooden altar. It was an unassuming candle, unlike the grand and ornate candelabras that adorned the larger churches, yet it stood with a certain quiet dignity. As twilight descended upon the village, enveloping it in a shroud of darkness, the little candle began its nightly vigil. Inside the chapel, shadows danced along the walls, swaying to the rhythm of the candle's flickering flame. Despite its humble size, the little candle's light stretched across the room, casting a warm glow that chased away the shadows. Villagers often sought solace in the chapel, especially during times of hardship. Tonight was such a night. The crops had failed, and many faced an uncertain future. Hearts were heavy, and despair lingered like the impending night. A young boy entered the chapel, his eyes wide with worry yet flickering with hope. He approached the altar, captivated by the little candle. To him, it seemed more than just wax and wick, it was a beacon of hope. "Why do you burn so brightly, little candle?" the boy whispered. The candle, of course, did not respond, but its unwavering flame continued to dance cheerfully, undeterred by the darkness surrounding it. Inspired by its persistence, the boy sat down in one of the pews. He began to pray, drawing strength from the little light that refused to be overcome by the night. And as he prayed, he felt the heavy burden of his worries begin to lift. The light from the small flame started to grow within him, kindling a quiet assurance that all was not lost. Word of the boy's experience spread throughout the village. Soon, others came, wanting to witness the little candle that had given comfort in the darkness. Each entered with burdens of their own, leaving lighter, their spirits gently lifted by the persistent flame. The candle continued to burn night after night, its wax diminishing but its light unwavering, teaching all who sought its glow that even the smallest light has the power to dispel the greatest darkness. It became a symbol in the village, a testament to resilience and the enduring power of faith. Though its physical form would eventually fade, the light it inspired in the hearts of the villagers burned on, reminding them that hope, like the flame of the little candle, would never truly be extinguished. And thus, the little candle in the dark taught a profound lesson. Within each of us lies a light that the darkness cannot overcome, a faith that sustains us even in the bleakest of times. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it.